Hi guys, this is Pete, and I'll tell you what, who have I got here with me, eh? Senator Fraser Anning, how are you, Fraser?
Good, Pete, yeah, good to meet you.
Mate, I'm just a little bit nervous, you know.
Oh, really? Why?
You're turning into a bit of a rock star, mate. Eh? Geez, you are gaining some traction on social media. Mate, there's a clause that's been circling Facebook particularly lately that says Fraser PM. What, is there any possibility of that ever happening?
I couldn't see it happening. I'm not in one of the major parties. You know, I'm starting my own party. It'll be a good conservative right-wing party, which I don't think Australia's had for a long time. You know, the Liberals have moved so far to the left now that there's hardly anything between them and the Labor. So what's happened, Pete, is that the people of Australia who wanted an alternative, they don't have one anymore. They've got a socialist party and a left-wing party and a communist party in charge. So I think it's time we got a good conservative party up.
Absolutely, but realistically, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would like to see you in the driver's seat, mate. So we're going to have to figure out a way that we can make that happen.
Well, look, and I appreciate their support, but you know, if we can get enough good quality conservative people in this time, and I think this is the last chance we're going to have, by the way. I don't want to sound negative, but we're going a long way down the socialist road, and we really need to get some people in there to stop, start blocking these mad moves that our government and our opposition are talking about. They're all beholden to the United Nations, and as far as I'm concerned, the United Nations have done nothing for us. They've cost us billions and billions of dollars, and basically they're dictating terms to the Australian people, and that's not right.
Hallelujah. So, mate, has the migration policies addressed the concerns of the majority of the Australian population, do you think?
No, absolutely not. Not only hasn't it addressed their concerns, it hasn't even given them a say in who comes to this country. For 45 years, successive governments have been stuffing their electorates with immigrants to shore up their vote, both Labor and the Liberals. So for 45 years, Australians haven't had a say in who comes here. Well, I think it's only fair that we give the Australian people a say in who's going to be their neighbour. And the people of Lakemba, for instance, who used to live there, who don't live there anymore, and some of these other suburbs where they've been pushed out of their own suburbs. If that had a say, I can guarantee you that most of them wouldn't have wanted what they've got. It's okay for politicians; they live in their big homes with the bloody, the big walls and stuff, and they don't have to rub shoulders with these people. So, I think that we should give the Australian people a say in who comes here.
But how do we do that?
Well, I put a bill up in the last sitting for a plebiscite for exactly that. The same as a plebiscite for the gay marriage. I put a plebiscite up that would give the Australian people not only a say in how many people come here, because we're stuffing too many in here, but who comes here. So do you want Muslim immigration, for instance? Let the people say yes or no. I'll happily go along with the umpire's decision.
Pretty sure I'd know what the umpire's decision would be on that, but time will tell, I guess.
Exactly.
Fraser, some of the critics have labelled you as a nationalist. Do you believe that that's what you are?
Yeah, I do believe I'm a nationalist, and I don't know why you'd be somebody would be critical of that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a nationalist is somebody who loves their country and would put Australia and Australians first. So yes, I'll do that every time, particularly with Australian goods being manufactured here, looking after Australian jobs. If that's a crime, then I'm guilty.
Me too, I reckon. I must be a nationalist too. I didn't even know what that word meant, mate. Yes, cheers.
Cheers.
4x gold, good Aussie beer. So realistically, mate, how do we actually stop the influx of illegal immigrants?
One, cancel the refugee program for a start off. These are fake refugees. A lot of them have travelled and covered 10 or 15 countries to get here, any of which could have taken them in as a refugee. They're coming all the way to Australia mainly because of our great welfare system. Wow. So they're economic migrants, they're welfare seekers, not real refugees. Once they get here, they're looked after extremely well at the poor old taxpayers' expense. Now you've got to remember, a lot of these people, they're seeking refuge. Basically, they're running away from the wars in their own country. They don't want to fight those wars, so Australian taxpayers are paying our soldiers, our diggers, and the Americans and others to go there and fight those same wars against ISIS and other Islamic groups. So not only is it costing the taxpayer while they're here, it's also costing the taxpayer to keep our armies over there, and our good diggers are fighting over there, and some of them are dying over there. So it's a double burden. So what I've been saying is that you know, ISIS is pretty much defeated now, and Sudan, for instance, is now stabilised. So it's time now for them to go home. You know, let's repatriate them. Let's get them back to their home country. We've fought their battle. We've conquered their problems a lot of the time. Send them home, and they can you know, join their loved ones over there and maybe help rebuild their country. They didn't want to fight the war over there. That's fine. We'll go over there and help rebuild it. But two things will happen. Our welfare bill will be drastically less. We'll save billions every year on that. And two, our crime rate will plummet, because you know, the Sudanese are overrepresented in crime in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane and other regional areas. So it's a win-win for all of us.
And Fraser, maybe we could then redirect some money into looking after our homeless.
Exactly.
And our return servicemen, mate.
Exactly. And our pensioners. Our pensioners, 35% of our pensioners are under the poverty line. We're the worst country in the OECD. You know, we have the worst you know, amount of people on below the poverty line in the pensioners, and so yes, we can help them. We can help our vets, our servicemen have returned, and our homeless. You know, and instead of pouring money into so-called refugees.
Fraser for Prime Minister, mate. Hey, mate. Do you feel that the Islamic leaders in Australia do enough to prevent extremist fanaticism?
No, I don't think they're doing much at all. The odd one will say a little bit here and there, but it's paying lip service to it. As a matter of fact, I think quite a lot of them are doing the opposite. I think the mosques at times are places where they're radicalising a lot of these young people. They're preaching hate, and well, basically they're preaching the Quran, which is hate. You know, it's a doctrine or their religious order, but it's their religious book, apparently, but it incites violence and hate against the infidel, which is us. And if you're reading that book in your mosques, then you know, you've got to take it literally, and that's what a lot of these young people are doing, and that's why we're having things like the Burke Street massacre. You know, where little, you know, Talia was slaughtered, and Jess Louis and
tragedy.
Those sort of people. You know, they're good Australians who are now not with us. Because we have this you know, this culture of violence against us with the Muslims.
Crazy. So Fraser, some cities in Australia seem to be having a fairly big problem with African street gangs. Other cities aren't, mate. What's the explanation for that?
Well, the cities that aren't probably don't have any there, you know, any Africans in there, but the Sudanese particularly, they're extremely violent. The Sudanese gangs, there'll be 60 or so, and they'll beat up a family of 4 or whatever, rob them, but then brutally bash them as well. So that's unacceptable. The cities that don't, I don't know any of the cities that don't. I know Brisbane here, we've had 8 violent robberies, stabbings and attacks in the last 2 months. Adelaide's had them. Pretty much every city where they are, excuse me, has had that problem. So and now the new gangs are coming along, the very young ones, the younger brothers and sisters of those people. So excuse me, what I'd say is...
Have another beer, mate.
Yeah, good luck. What I'd say is what a lot of people don't realise is if you know, 40 Sudanese belt up a couple of white young lads and take their phones and give them a belting, it's called you know, robbery, and with people of African appearance. But if 40 white guys beat up a couple of Africans, it'd be a race hate crime.
Yeah,
Instantly, it'd be a race hate crime. But it's never a race hate crime, you know, when the Sudanese belt up a white family. But it is a race hate crime if the opposite was to occur, which doesn't occur, by the way. But if it did, that's exactly what you'd have headlines. You know, whites race hate. You know, these white thugs beat up the Africans. So it's all you know, it's all geared to make the poor old white guy look like the bad guy the whole time.
And Fraser, I've noticed that you're an advocate for deporting immigrants who are convicted of a serious crime here in this country. But what if those immigrants were actually born here?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, any right that's given can be revoked.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you give them citizenship and they behave like barbaric animals in the country and they attack our citizens, send them home.
And attack our culture and attack our way of life. Because
Absolutely.
The people in Melbourne are afraid to go out of their homes at night time. They're afraid to go out in the street now, aren't they?
And they're also afraid now to go to their beaches because they realise that they're pretty vulnerable there, mum and dad and a couple of kids on the beach, and next thing they've got 20 of these thugs around them who give them a belting, take their gear and then run like hairy goats down the road with their money.
Crazy stuff. Fraser, who do you feel, in your opinion, was Australia's greatest Prime Minister, mate?
Well, I think Edmund Barton, our first Prime Minister, was
good choice.
Very hard to beat. You know, he set the country up the way he wanted to. He envisaged this to be, which is predominantly European. You know, he got the colonies together, and I think he loved the country, and he set us up on a really good course. Since then, we've had pretty good fine sailing up until about 1973 when Whitlam got in, and he then changed the whole thing. He signed the Lima Agreement, which sent a lot of our industry offshore and lost a lot of jobs for Australians. The idea was to put 30% of our manufacture into a third world country and then we'd buy the rubbish back again. Well, it's now 90%. He started the immigration of all these people who do not assimilate. You know, the Italians and the Greeks, they assimilated beautifully, they worked hard, and they built this nation, and then he brought in people who did exactly the opposite, who didn't try and help us, who caused us all these problems. And I know you know that in 1970 we were 99% European. We're now less than 70% European in this country. If we keep going the way we're going, soon we'll be a minority in our own country.
Yeah, and that terrifies me. And it's not that I'm all that concerned about it, because I'll most likely be dead and gone, so will you, but what about our kids, mate?
Kids and grandkids, they're the people who are suffering and will continue to suffer. I always wonder why it is that only the white successful nations, European nations like Australia, America and Europe, need diversity. And no other country seems to need. Africa doesn't need diversity, and China doesn't seem to need diversity, and the Middle East doesn't seem to need diversity. No. But if you've been successful and your forefathers and ourselves built a decent country with a good society and a lovely place to live, all of a sudden we're told we need diversity. Well, that's a United Nations mandate, and again we're doing exactly what the United Nations are telling us to do, and against the will of most Australians.
It's terrifying for me. Now I'm 58 years old. It's terrifying for me to see what's happened to this country, particularly in the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. It's just absolutely frightening, and that's why we're hoping that you're going to end up in a position where you're going to be able to do something about it.
Yeah, well, I'd happily do that.
A lot of us are voting for this.
If I can get some good conservative people with me in the Senate and some more good ones on the crossbench in the lower house, we can hold the government to ransom. We can force, make sure that we do these things, like repatriating these people, cutting that massive welfare bill to people who will never ever get a job. They don't want a job. They're not employable anyway. They're just happy to live here. I mean, the way I see it is Australia has become the third world's biggest retirement village. The third world people think it's great. Come over here and these fake refugees and live on the dole for the rest of your life.
Wow. Righto, so now we're going to talk about what's your favourite beer, mate.
Oh.
We're done pretty much.
Yeah, wrong.
Hang on a minute, 3, 2, 1. So, mate, a question that a lot of people have been asking me on social media, particularly when they heard that I was coming to have a chat with you, what's your favourite beer, mate?
Well, Gull's not a bad one to start off with. It's a good Queensland beer. But I like quite a few of them. There's Great Northern and there's Iron Jack and different ones, but particularly like them just before a good rum. Bundaberg preferably.
Absolutely. I tell you what, I used to drink Bundy rum. I drank it for about 30 years, but in the last 5 or 10 years it started to make my lips bleed.
Really? I haven't heard that condition.
So I gave it away, mate. Yeah.
Well,
So-
I've had a lot of hotels in my life, and some of the rougher ones in Queensland and other places, and there's a lot of people we don't serve rum to, you know, especially in the bush, because on beer they're happy, friendly, and on rum they want to kill you, so they know more about it.
And then out in the bush too, I've noticed that a lot of the old cockies like to have a schooner of beer and then they'll drop a rum shot into it. That's called something, isn't it? Depth charge or something?
No, I think that was, yeah.
Long time ago, that's old
I know
school.
beer and a bourbon, a shot of bourbon's a Boilermaker, but yeah, most of the old guys in the bushies, they just drink rum because by the time the beer gets out to the cattle station on a mail truck, it's had it, you know, it's bounced around for, 100 kilometres over rough roads, so
Yeah.
so they'd always get cases of rum, and that's, where the rum drinking in the bush sort of got a fair bit of strength.
Well, Fraser, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. It's been so
Yeah.
nice to meet you. And gang, Fraser for PM. I want to see that spread all over social media. See you, mate.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, good on you.